Good morning, College Lacrosse fans. Thanks for joining us for week 2 of College Lacrosse Game Day. This episode, we have a few guests, one being St. Joe's attackman Levi Anderson, senior, as well as head coach for Hobart College, Greg Raymond, and lastly, John Piatelli, Cornell class of 22, was the nation's leading scorer his senior year and brought Cornell to a national championship. We also have Hobart class of 22 attackman Tommy Mott, now known as Tommy Locks. He's going to help us with our betting analysis. We'll go over last week's games against the shot clock as quick as possible and talk about week 2's slate. Thanks for joining.
Holden getting underneath. Maltz, great catch by Bernhardt. Score! Hello, highlight reel.
Play like a champion today. Notre Dame with its first title in men's lacrosse.
Marquette 16, Lindenwood 5. Marquette to 2-0 heading into a big game on February 18th against Notre Dame, the defending national champions. Syracuse 16, Manhattan 3. Syracuse advances to 3-0. Spillane and the Orangemen have Maryland on Saturday. Holy Cross 16, UMass Lowell 9, despite the face-off guy Jack Bird going 24 of 26 from the face-off X. Jacksonville 9, Binghamton 8. Binghamton covered, but the more athletic Dolphins sneak out the win in Sparks, Maryland.
BU 18, Vermont 8. BU continues to roll as Perfetto and the Terriers take down the Catamounts. One of us should apply to the play-by-play job at BU. It was embarrassing product coming out of the press box. Marist 17, Bucknell 10. Marist picks up where they left off last year, beating a disorganized Bucknell program that will likely struggle in the Patriot League. Bryant 15, Providence 13. Bryant will look to compete in the Island State sweep in their game at Brown on April 23rd. Providence still looks like a competent Big East team who will make some noise this year.
Ohio State 13, Cleveland State 6. Nick Myers' defense is thrown as the king of Ohio, taking down a Cleveland State team that couldn't match the athleticism of the Buckeyes. Delaware 14, Lafayette 6. Delaware blows past the Leopards as J.P. Ward and Mike Robinson look to be one of the best attack units in college lacrosse. Lehigh 8, Fairfield 7. The Mountain Hawks survive a trap game and beat the Stags by 1. Andrew Baxter and his team may surprise some people this year as they matched up well against an explosive Lehigh team.
Hopkins 11, Georgetown 9. The Blue Jays hold on to improve 2-1. This is a must-win game for Hopkins and Coach Milliman as his team gutted out. The young Hoyas need to get back on track this week with their game at Penn on Saturday. Navy 16, Hofstra 8. Navy continues to dominate their opponents with a balanced offense headlined by Xavier Airline, who finally seems comfortable playing lacrosse again after wrapping up his football career for the midshipmen. Monmouth 14, LIU 10. Monmouth beats LIU in the Chrome Helmets. They improved to 1-0 on the year. They play a loaded Princeton team this weekend.
In the story of the Tortoise and the Greyhound, Slow and Steady wins the race as Maryland takes down Loyola 11-4, and Ajax Zapatello and the Terrapins defense holds a dynamic but distracted Loyola offense to 4 goals in College Park, avenging their loss from a year ago. Merrimack 11, Sacred Heart 10. Coach Morgan continues to develop a talented Merrimack team as they beat a gritty Sacred Heart group who put up 14 against Stony Brook last week.
Virginia 19, Michigan 11. McCabe Millen might be that good. Losses cool early on and netted 5 in the game. What a joy it is to watch the Virginia Cavaliers play lacrosse. Michigan coach Kevin Connery fueled the fire before the game, saying Virginia plays, quote, pretty boy lacrosse, implying Big Ten athletes are more physically dominant than ACC athletes. Kevin Connery didn't know he had a one-way ticket to Jurassic Park. The Wolverines were a tasty snack for Lars Tiffany's pack of hungry velociraptors.
Penn State 18, Villanova 10. Penn State bounces back by beating a young and inexperienced Wildcat team. The Nittany Lions finally look like the team from last year as they have their back against the wall. VMI 14, Queens 10. What a joy it has been watching these two teams compete this year.
Down came the Colonials, and the Spiders washed them out, 23-7. Richmond blows past a solid RMU team and continues to prove their double OT loss against Maryland wasn't a fluke. They will be a force to reckon with come May. Rutgers 16, Stony Brook 12. Rutgers goes into Long Island and beats the Seawolves. Stony Brook covered, but their defense could not hold off the Scarlet Knights, who seemed to be clicking on both sides of the ball. Army 13, UMass 12. The grittiest game of the weekend. The Black Knights hold off the Minutemen in Silverback Park, Atlanta. Army picks up where they left off last year with an explosive offense that's headlined by Jacob Morin and Reese Burek from Rochester, not Canada. UMass looked good as well, and Matt Nodi and the Minutemen defense matched up well against a loaded Army team. UMass will make some noise in the A-10 as they fall just short of beating a top 10 team.
NJIT 16, Siena 15, in a heartbreaking and surprising loss. Siena loses to NJIT in overtime. NJIT 2-0 this year, could go undefeated. Quinnipiac 17, St. John's 11. St. John's looks to get their first win in a long time tonight in their game against Hofstra. Denver 11, Air Force 9. Matt Brown and a bruised-up Denver team defeat Air Force by 2. Air Force are yet to reach Mach 10.
Duke 21, High Point 9. Duke covers against High Point. Duke continues to prove why they are one of the most complete teams in college lacrosse. We were looking for the Panthers to surprise the Blue Devils this week, but that did not happen. The big question for Duke and net, where is William Helm? They continue to start a freshman for the second straight week. UNC 13, Mercer 5. UNC wins a sloppy game against Mercer as this new-look Tar Heels coaching staff continues to develop their identity. Towson 15, Mount St. Mary's 5. Mount St. Mary's is no match for a Towson team who went 75% of the X and goes as DeMaio goes. Bellarmine 13, St. Bonnie's 9. Bellarmine continues to impress. They beat up on a young St. Bonnie's team who seems to be lost in the Division I landscape.
Colgate 16, Hobart 11. The Statesmen's fall to the Raiders for the first time since 2017. Colgate is 2-1, and now the orange and purple fly west to test the maize and blue. Ohio State 10, Bellarmine 6. Ohio State slowly rolled over the Knights earlier today. I am thrilled to have a Big Ten Plus account.
Michigan, Canisius 21-5. That's all. Hofstra, St. John's. Hofstra, late stage comeback early this afternoon. They take the cake 17-13. Marquette, Detroit Mercy. The Golden Eagles blow out Detroit Mercy. Way out of the water, 22-8. Impressed with these guys nonetheless.
Notre Dame plays Cleveland State on Wednesday night. Since we record Tuesday, we're going to go ahead and say Notre Dame defeats the Vikings. Shut us up and prove us wrong, Cleveland State. So that was our shot clock segment. Not sure if we beat the shot clock. But what a week. College lacrosse. Week 1 in the books.
It was a great week. Saw some teams come out and have some very good performances. Saw some surprises. Saw some tough losses for some good teams. Had everything.
So the weather was beautiful, man. I wish I could have traveled to every single game at once, but got to pull the TV outside, get some fresh air, and just watch as many games as possible. It was a great week 1 for sure.
It's almost 60 degrees here in Boston.
Hot.
Yeah, it's very hot for February. Great day to watch lacrosse. Glad you brought the TV outside.
Of course.
Wish I joined you.
Of course.
Few big topics. Michigan find out what happens when you poke the bear. Virginia.
Yeah, I think everybody heard what Coach Kevin Conroy, the coach of Michigan, said before the game. Maybe it was taken out of context, but it was certainly some bulletin board material. And
to say the least.
I love it. I love it, man. Like, I get it. You're going to that game. It's a big week 1 game. That's a big opening game, and you're trying to get the boys going. You're trying to start some fuel, feed the fire for your team, and honestly, the lacrosse world in general. Obviously, they didn't perform the way they wanted to. That's a good UVA team, but I enjoy it.
Yeah. I think that was something you say to your team in the locker room in a different language, right? That's not something you put in the media out to the public, out to Lars Tiffany, out to Connor Schellenberger, out to Peyton Cormier, right? It's just something you keep internal there.
That is so easy to use if you're UVA. That is so easy to use. Coach said that about not only our conference, but our team and my brothers, my
and it was
friends,
posted
my
everywhere.
teammates.
Twitter.
And you're at home on Clockner Field, you're opening up. The score reflects that for sure.
It's locker room material by definition. Great game there. I mean, McKay Millen, he's pretty good.
Yeah, hell of a first game for McCabe Millen. He was just named D1 Player of the Week. 5 goals, right? And he let everybody in the stadium, everybody in the country know that he's there. Right?
He took his helmet off and let him see, right?
He was chirping. I mean, granted, he was getting cheap shotted, but as a freshman, you don't see that a lot. Someone standing up to a close defenseman from Michigan and chewing his ear out after he rips one high to high, right? You don't see that very often. And, that says something about McCabe Millen, where he came from, a McDonough guy, right? He's got that chip on his shoulder. He's got that, I wouldn't call it blue blood mentality or blue collar mentality, but, he's a gritty player and he's extremely talented. And he kind of fits perfectly in that Virginia offense.
It's just so hard to do as a freshman. I don't care where you go. Anywhere in the Division I landscape to have that opening game, and then you're talking about playing a Big Ten opponent. I mean, you can just tell. Like, anybody who knows lacrosse, who loves lacrosse, who has played or has been around the game for long enough knows when you see a player that they're going to be great. He's going to be a good player. Mm-hmm. He's going to be a good player. We all know it. We're going to see him scoring a lot of goals for his entire career. I'm sure it'll continue to increase as he goes.
We'll see where he stacks against some of the greats at the University of Virginia. Another game I loved from the weekend was Army-UMass. We said it was a clash of culture in that game. They played in Atlanta. Entertaining. Did you guys watch?
Yeah, I watched the whole thing, or at least the highlights of it and part of the game. But yeah, interesting neutral site game, right? 2 programs that when you think about gritty mentality, right, you think about Army and UMass. Army obviously being a military school is hard-nosed and, in recent years and including this year, an extremely talented team, right? Something you don't usually see out of Army, great athletes with great stick skills who are ripping corners, right? A lot of time when you see Army play, look at their defense who's just hammering guys, and you look at their, kind of big lumbering middies and attackmen who just get to the net, aren't that savvy with their hands. But this Army team is different, right? They are extremely talented, stick-wise and also extremely athletic. And UMass is, I thought they proved a lot in that game, right? UMass is, I believe they were unranked, right? Maybe they, fell in that 18 to 20 range.
No, they were unranked.
They were unranked?
Yep.
Yeah. But, to play a top 10 team, right? What I think is a top 5 team in Army.
Sure.
To play them as tight as they did and, really had a good chance to win early on. Army kind of made a comeback towards the end of the game. Says a lot about UMass and the culture that they have and the team that they have on the field this year. Says a lot about Coach Canella and what they're going to be capable of this year.
That had to be a cool venue to be at.
Yeah.
Both player and attendee. Like that, you get to watch 2 really good games, and then you get to watch that gritty clash again. That was probably physical, like great game to watch in person. Back and forth, tight game, tightly contested, and 2 teams who are just fun to watch. It's fun to watch the Syracuses. It's fun to watch the UVAs, all these goal scorers. But it's even, in my opinion, even more fun to watch those games that are tightly contested and they're just beating the piss out of each other. And every play just matters so much, like those ground balls and those big plays that aren't so big. That's when I think of like Army and UMass.
In Atlanta, you wonder how many kids became big lacrosse fans over the weekend in Atlanta, Georgia. A great event. Last thing before we dive into this week's slate, a couple of teams who stood out. Maryland and Duke are really good at lacrosse. Maryland proves why they're the boss. They take it to Loyola. Duke takes it to High Point. Love you, Asher. Thanks for being on week 1. We loved High Point covering this game, but Duke was just too good. They score some goals, and you can tell they're trying to move the ball and get good lacrosse goals, and Brent O'Neill will do some amazing move and take his guy to the rack and do some otherworldly goal, and you can kind of tell they're like, that's cool, but we'd rather draw a slide, move it, one more pass, and get a dunk, and then they did that multiple times.
You're talking about two good, solid mid-major teams, Loyola and High Point. You're talking about two solid teams who we thought plus 9.5. Come on, they got to cover that. But then you watch that game, you watch Duke and what they can do, and you're like, gee, the separation of Duke between like most of Division I lacrosse is at this moment is pretty far.
Yeah,
it's impressive.
Yeah,
and then Maryland too. That's a good Loyola team. I don't care if Georgetown's not as great as they've always been. That's a good win week 1 against Georgetown, and then to go to Maryland and only put up 3 goals, and to lose by, what was it?
11-4.
11-4. Those are good teams.
Yeah, both outstanding teams and great starts to their season. I think the difference between the two is when you look at Duke, right? They just have athletes and generational type lacrosse players. Brennan O'Neill, obviously headlining that. But Dyson Williams and Zawada and Andrew McAdory on offense, to name a few, are also all generational type lacrosse players, right? Duke is seriously a power team and one of the best we've ever seen, in my opinion. And then Maryland on the other side is, they're a talented team, but they don't have the names that Duke does and some of these other teams do. They're just extremely well coached, right? I think they're extremely well led by Tillman and Zapatillo, right? I think they have guys that they can fall behind and guys who are going to do their job. And, it's Maryland lacrosse, right? They're as good as it gets. They have great players, and they're just a complete team that's really difficult to get a win against.
Excited to watch them continue their 2024 campaign here. Want to spend a moment just reflecting on some atrocious picks in week 1 by our team. And if your families are starving, we're sorry. It's an extreme ownership moment. We
dropped the ball.
We did. And to help us out, we brought in an analyst.
An expert, some would say.
Yes. By some measures, an expert to help us with our picks. He goes by the name of Tommy Locks. He's going to be joining us to provide some insight on what we should be looking for this week. As we cover the games, we'll provide some picks that we suggest you feed the family with. We don't promise you'll be able to, but they are suggestions. If your kids are starving, we're sorry. Going to dive right into it. Thanks.
What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy Mott. I want to start off by saying thanks to Dan, Mike, and the other guys on this podcast for having me on. I look forward to this podcast every single week, and I am honored to be on it. My job here is to provide some insight on the sports betting side of college lacrosse. Betting's not for everyone, but it is for me. Always gamble responsibly, never forget that. So I will hop right into my picks. I got 3 picks for you guys. I'll kind of go through them super quick and give some insight on why I'm picking what I'm picking. First, we got UNC versus Fairfield at Fairfield. Fairfield's first game was 7-8 against Lehigh. Pretty surprising outcome, low-scoring game. Flipping over to UNC's first game, 13-5 against Mercer. They did not cover the spread, and quite frankly, it was kind of a disappointment. I was hoping they were going to score 25 goals in their first game. They did not. The over-under for this game is 25. It is heavily favorited on the over for on DraftKings, I mean. Look, this could be a hot take. I'm going with the under in this game simply because the under hit in both of these teams' first games. Everyone's slamming the over due to the high-powered UNC offense, but are they really high-powered when they only put up 13 in their home opener against Mercer? Got to be something about the goals at Fairfield. They got to look smaller this week. Under 25, fade Vegas. Fade the public. Fade the public. Ride with Vegas. Under 25, place the bet. Next, we got Navy versus Towson. I love this bet. This is the bet of all bets. The lock of locks. Buy your mom a new car. Buy your girlfriend something insanely expensive that she doesn't need because you're going to have the money to afford it. I am placing a huge unit on this, a.k.a. $50 because I work a sales job and don't make a lot of money. But over 23.5 goals, Navy versus Towson. Bet on this. I am telling you. Navy's first 2 games totaled 25-24. Offense is clicking. Towson, coming off 15-point performance in their home opener against the Mount. They've played Hopkins. They've played a good defense. They've played in a big-time game. They're ready for Navy. Both teams coming out, scoring goals, 23.5 slow. Thank you. Next, Maryland versus Cuse in the Dome. I'll just say this right now, Maryland money line. I have no idea why Syracuse is favorited again. Why are they favorited? Let me ask you that again. Why is Syracuse favorited against Maryland? Yeah, I see an opportunity here. Maryland money line. Size, speed, athleticism beats flash every single time. I'm a logical human being. Maryland, 2 games under their belt, scraped one out against a good Richmond team. Shout out Lance Madonna. You're beautiful. Handled Loyola with ease. We're talking about Maryland here. Cuse, 3 games already, covered the spread in 2 of them, pushed 1 of them. Yeah, they're off to a hot start, but we're talking about Maryland. Maryland money line. That is all I got for you guys regarding some analysis and kind of some insight and some early trends in the season. It's way too early. So why don't you just take what I just gave you, place those bets. If they don't hit, please never reach out to me because I lost money too. Understand that. Thank you guys for having me on here. This has been a blast. I hope I get invited back. I miss you, Jake Sampson, and I look forward to these coming up episodes.
Thank you to Tommy Locks for that analysis. Before we get into our Week 1 slate, we do want to cover or mention that we're going to go over our D3 rundown at the end of this before we dive into our games of the week. That play is starting to pick up. But we're starting with Drexel at UMBC. This game's on Friday at 5. UMBC are 1.5 goal favorites.
This here is a CAA and America East clash. The opening game of the 2024 season for both teams. UMBC is 2-0 against Drexel, beating them last year 12-7. UMBC brings back junior defenseman Ethan Robinson, first team all-conference, and junior attackman Mateo Brown, who was second team, and then Drexel was voted number 4 in the CAA preseason poll and have junior defenseman Colin, cannot say your name, Colin, and junior Luke Tomac as all-conference as well.
VMI goes to High Point. High Point is 8.5 goal favorites in this game on Friday night at 6 o'clock.
Yep, VMI is 1-1 on the year. They lost to Cleveland State in overtime in week 0, and then they beat a Queens team last week who is somewhat unproven, but not too much to expect from them. High Point is still a good team, right? They beat Mercer week 0, and then last week they lost to Duke 21-9. Kind of got pounded a little bit. But, High Point is a tough place to play. And after Duke, I think they're going to be a little more battle-tested. They still have some studs in Brendan Maia and Jack Van Overbeek who were limited against Duke, but they'll bounce back this week against VMI. I expect High Point to win this game.
Saturday, we got NJIT at Mount St. Mary's. This game's at 11 a.m. Mount St. Mary, 1.5 goal favorites.
Yeah, this is the first ever 2-0 season for the New Jersey Institute of Technology. Grant Muscatella has been named the America East Offensive Player of the Week. Last week he had 5 goals. His teammate Liam Brown won Defensive Player of the Week last week. Mount St. Mary's hasn't really proven a whole lot. They're 0-2 to start. Not to terrible teams, first Navy, then Towson. Both 10-goal margins. I'm going to roll Tech. I think they could come out of nowhere this year. They kind of have for their standard. I think this would be a statement at Mount.
Canisius, 8.5 goal underdogs at Bellarmine. This one's at 12 noon Saturday.
Opening weekend for Canisius after a rough 2-13 season. They're also losing their guy to Rutgers attackman Colin Kelly. Bellarmine coming off a win against St. Bonaventure, which was led by freshman attackman John Alley, who had 6 points.
Speaking of the Bonnies, they are 6-goal underdogs at Binghamton at 12 noon Saturday.
Yeah, watch out for Binghamton this year. That was one of our Feed the Family picks of the week, and they covered against Jacksonville. They lost by 1 last week in a tough neutral site game. Liam Ferris had 2 goals, and Sonny Imburgia had 1 goal and an assist. For Binghamton, they do have a lot of balance coming out of their offense, so I think they're going to be a good team to watch this year. St. Bonnie's still has a lot to prove this year. A team that, is still trying to figure out who they are, and this would be a big win, but I like Binghamton -6 in this game.
Dartmouth, 1.5 goal favorites at Bucknell this Saturday.
Season opener for the Big Green this week. Dartmouth was the 500 team last year, 6-6. 2-2 at home, 4-4 on the road. Who do they have coming back? They have Colin McGill. He begins his senior campaign. He led Dartmouth last year with 46 points. Showed a lot of confidence with the ball, so he should be impactful once again. I was a bit surprised with Bucknell. They scored 10 points in the last 2 games. Really, if you want to be successful in the Patriot League, you got to grind out games. But the offense there needs to be more productive. So this might be a bit of a toss-up here.
Colgate 3-goal favorites at Albany.
Albany home opener after a bounce-back season for the Great Danes that saw them have a heartbreaking loss to Bryant in the American East Conference Championship in double overtime. They have grad LSM Jake Paceno named preseason All-American, and they were picked 3rd in the American East this year. Colgate starting the year off 2-1 with wins over Penn State and Hobart. They are led by a balanced attack consisting of Rory Connor and Michael Minigas.
St. Joe's University travels to Duke. They are 8-goal underdogs against the Blue Devils. This is one's at 12 noon. Before we provide our analysis, we're going to tune into a quick interview we did with attackman Levi Anderson. Last year he was 2023 A10 first team attackman from Alberta, Calgary, Alberta. So he's a Canadian. He's playing with the same attackman. He has been for 3 years. He's a stud. We're happy to have him on the show.
Levi Anderson is the truth. He's a two-handed lefty Canadian trailer. You can pound his bottom game. You can try to play physical with him. He's too long. He's too lanky. He's too skilled around goal line extended.
All right, Levi, thanks for joining the show.
How's it going, fellas? Thanks for having me.
We're good, man. We're pumped you're here. Well, I want to get right into it, so just talk about last year a little bit. In 2023, you're 10-5, a 1-goal loss to Hopkins and UPenn, a tight game with Duke. You sweep the conference in the first year in the regular season. People know how hard that is to do. Just talk a little bit about your first year in the A10.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been new challenges. A lot of strong teams too. Going back to last year, we had a strong start. Obviously, didn't have the result we wanted at the end, but no, it's definitely been new challenges. A lot of stronger teams, a lot of new faces, and just kind of just new teams. So it's been a grind, but it's been a challenge that we've been open to kind of attack, and we're just taking it day by day.
Totally. And you have a good group to do it with. It's your 3rd year with the same starting attack line, all different styles between the 3 of you. Talk a little bit about what it's like playing together for the 3rd year in a row.
Yeah, so it's been amazing. We've had a couple transfers to come into a team to change a bit of our attack line. Right now we're running all Canadian, which I personally love.
Hell yeah.
It's definitely nice to kind of just work off each other and kind of know each other's tendencies, which is good too. But right now we're running with Thorne Eccleston, Calgary boy, and then Carter Page, obviously. Just got the silkiest mitts in the league, which is amazing. So it's definitely good to feed off each other and then just kind of steer the ship. And, we're excited for this weekend.
Oh, yeah. Know all too much about those silky mitts from Carter Page. Yeah. A tough loss to BU last week to open things up. You've had 10 days, though, to prepare for Duke. Obviously, you guys are looking to move on fast, but I guess what is the focus this week for St. Joe's?
Like you said, it was a tough loss, but definitely trying to bounce back as quick as possible and just get into the film. We know we have in the locker room, the bodies we have and the matchups that are going to, come to play this weekend. So we're just trying to fine tune up the rest of our, offense and defense, more in the transition and ride play. But kind of just putting it all together into the next 60 minutes we have upcoming here.
Absolutely. We're fired up for the game. And I guess one last question for those recruits out there, why should they come to St. Joe's University?
Hawk Hill's amazing. Great coaching staff, great fan base, great education. What more could you want? You got great jerseys, great apparel, and it's just amazing. I wouldn't have looked anywhere else, and I'm happy that I spent my last year here and graduating as an alumni from St. Joe's. It's amazing.
Love it, man. Thanks so much for joining the show. I appreciate it, Levi.
No worries, fellas. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thanks. Thanks to Levi for that interview. Another accolade I forgot to mention, 2022 NEC champion. Took a couple of the show's members down in that game in a monsoon on Hawk Hill. Great having him on, great guy. Hayden, you have a little bit of analysis for this game as well.
Yeah, this is going to be a great game. St. Joe's is +8, which, is a big spread, and we expect St. Joe's to cover. Like Levi said, right, he's playing alongside Matt Bomer, Torrin Eccleston, the Lenore Ryan transfer from D2, and Carter Page. Right, a really solid attack line. This will be the best matchup that Duke has as of yet. Like we mentioned earlier, Duke is a super team, and it's going to be a good test for St. Joe's, but St. Joe's could be a team to knock off the Blue Devils this week.
UNC at Fairfield. Tommy Locks provided some insight in this game. He seems to like the over. But Brett, what do you have?
Yeah, I think the Stags kept it close with Lehigh. They almost played up to them in a sense. UNC last week did the opposite with Mercer and kind of decided to pull away only in the second half. Logan McGovern, he'll beat his guy. He'll generate offense. Maybe it's a coaching transition thing for UNC. I'm not really sure. Also, are they the 18th best team in the country inside lacrosse? I'm not sure about that. This is a huge statement game. The Heels can let these kind of mid-tier teams hang around. I think otherwise, I think they have to dominate.
Hampton, 15-goal underdogs at Lafayette, 12 noon.
Both teams coming off losses. Hampton losing to Mercer 20-5, and Lafayette losing to Delaware 14-6. Lafayette doubled up Hampton 18-9 last year.
Siena at Hofstra Saturday.
I had high hopes for Siena this year. They lost to NJIT last week in overtime. I think Hofstra wins this game. They need to bounce back after that Navy loss. Hofstra's a real tough place to play. Maybe Siena doesn't travel well. I like Hofstra money line on this.
Early in the year, don't get too down on Siena just yet. Sacred Heart at Holy Cross. Sacred Heart are 1.5 goal favorites.
Yeah, I think the Crusaders, they didn't have much of a challenge last week. They played UMass Lowell. The attack unit had a chance to pad their stats a little bit. Don't know how much better they really got. Sacred Heart, they should get the best of these guys. Morgan O'Reilly, Carson Spooner, they had 5 points against Merrimack, who's a pretty solid team. They came within one of them. So I think it should be a pretty comfy win for Sacred Heart.
Vermont Catamounts at Manhattan. The Jaspers are 4-goal underdogs.
Catamounts are 1-0 against Manhattan, beating them 15-3 in 2022. Manhattan is coming off a 3-16 loss to Cuse in the Dome. They were led by junior attackman Scott O'Connor, who had all 3 of their goals. Vermont is 0-2 with losses to BU and Cuse, led by sophomore midfielder Tristan Whitaker with 7 points on the year.
Princeton at Monmouth. Princeton 11-goal favorites. In this one, they open up their 2024 campaign.
Yeah, first taste of Princeton this year. This is a team we're certainly going to be talking about later on. Princeton lost a lot last year with Stevens and English going to Cuse, Vardar to Georgetown, Slusher to Duke. The list goes on, right? Princeton has been recruiting at an elite level in years past. They have some really talented players coming in, so those young guys are going to get a chance to show what they have. We don't know too much about Monmouth, but Princeton is loaded this year with Coulter Mackesy, who was a second-team All-American last year, Sean Cameron at Midi, and a lot of other really talented guys. So I like Princeton in this, but we don't know too much about Monmouth.
Monmouth beat LIU last week. Navy goes to Towson. They play 12 noon.
Yeah, Zach Hayashi, a freshman face-off man for the midshipmen. He was Patriot League Rookie of the Year. He took down Hofstra. It's always a good sign, controlling the X. I think it will be really important coming into this game. Towson has 2 freshmen facing off for them, and they actually struggled. One, Matt Consolatines, was 6 for 15. Rocco Marino, the other freshman, went 3 for 7 with Hopkins. Minus Nick DeMaio. Towson's a pretty young team in terms of their contributors. They could be a little overpowered by Navy down the stretch, but they're a upper middle CAA team. Really interested to see how it shakes out, but I think this goes to the midshipmen.
Division I Lemoyne at Wagner.
What?
You mentioned it, Lemoyne's first game on the Division I level, coming off a 17-1 year that saw them fall to the D2 championship runner-up Mercyhurst. They bring back leading point scorer, senior attackman Joey Pesaminti, and bring in Hobart grad transfer Jack Rooms. This will also be a future NEC foe, Wagner and Lemoyne, as the NEC will be back in 2025. Wagner is coming off a 3-11 season, including a 2-7 mark in their first year in the MAC, while the NEC is on hiatus.
Jack Grooms, good luck, buddy. Friend of the program. Ohio State at Air Force. Ohio State 3.5 goal favorites. This game is at 1 p.m.
Yeah, this could be a barn burner. We don't know too much about either team. Both teams really haven't proven much. Ohio State is 2-0. They've beaten some bad teams. Air Force is 0-2. They've lost to some good teams. I expect this to be close. This is Ohio State's first away game, so we'll see how they travel up to Colorado. But I like Ohio State in this game.
Another 1 p.m. game. Brown goes to Quinnipiac in Rhode Island battle.
Opening weekend for Brown, who is coming off a disappointing 6-8 season that saw them miss the Ivy League tournament. They lose first-team All-Ivy selection face-off man Matthew Gunty and second-team attackman Devin McLean. They are led by junior attackman Aiden McLean and attackman Matteo Corsi, who earned second-team All-Ivy honors, as well as senior defenseman Mark Witt. Quinnipiac is 1-0, coming off a convincing win against the Turry-led St. John's. They're also led by junior attackman Dylan Donnery, who had 5 goals.
And St. John's plays host to Delaware at 1 p.m. Saturday.
Yep, Delaware is a very good team this year. J.P. Ward and Mike Robinson are 2 attackmen who are work very well together, who are extremely talented. Interesting stat here about J.P. Ward. He's the only returning player in college lacrosse who had 40 goals and 40 assists last year. The other one is Brennan O'Neill. Right, so J.P. Ward is kind of a dark horse guy, an extremely talented and productive attackman. St. John's, on the other hand, still looking for their first win in quite a while, so we'll see how that shakes up, but I love Delaware.
Georgetown, 1.5 goal underdogs at UPenn.
Yeah, Georgetown's 0-2. They struggled thus far. Alex Verdaro is a Princeton transfer. He hasn't really made his presence felt quite yet. Graham Bundy had a hat trick on 13 shots. He's owning the shots there. And excited to see what Penn has out of the gate. They bring back James Shipley at the midfield. They bring back Ken Rubin at attack. Small, shifty, deceiving, hard release from Cam. Penn has 8 4-star recruits in their freshman class. They out-recruited Hopkins and Syracuse, to name a few, and they usually are pretty proud on that stat. Penn could easily take this one home. I think Georgetown is pretty vulnerable.
Hobart goes to Michigan, where they are 8.5 goal underdogs against the Maize and Blue. For some analysis in this game, we'll talk about it. But first, we're going to hear from head coach of Hobart, Greg Raymond. He was a 3-year captain at Johns Hopkins, a national champion in 2005. He's the 20th head coach at Hobart. He's had 7 conference tournament appearances. Our first head coach on the show, Greg Raymond.
The cage, big hit, a lot of contact. And a turnover. Raymond gets physical. Greg Raymond, key matchup for today for him is
Hey, Coach, thanks for being here.
Yeah, guys, I'm humbled and proud, man. You guys are doing a cool thing. I'm happy to spend some time with you.
Well, thank you. We're thrilled to have the chance to talk. I want to talk to you about a few things. Obviously, Michigan, second year in the A-10 for you guys. A lot's changed, though, at Hobart in college lacrosse and in college athletics over the past couple of years with things like NIL. As of last year, you now have some scholarships to go shopping with. It would be great if we could just hear about some of the recent changes in recruiting at Hobart over this year and the past couple.
Yeah, sure. I think the recruiting world is, has always kind of been the wild, wild west. And as soon as you feel like you got a grasp on the whole thing, it changes, it molds. We do a pretty poor job as coaches, shifting rules left and right, whether it be, on the field or in recruiting, or we tend to just, inevitably keep each other on our toes. And when you add the NIL thing, which I'm not sure anybody's got a great grasp of, at least at the Division I lacrosse level.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're hanging and banging with a Power 5 football conference, then you're light years ahead of what we're talking about. I think now it's all about money. It's not about kind of clarity or the right way to do it or what best practices are. No one's sharing that information really, and you get a lot of inquiry from your alums or folks that want to help about what are you doing with the NLI, and that's like my favorite question in the world now. What are you doing with the NLI? And I'm like, or NIL, sorry, and I'm like, what do you mean? Am I paying kids? Am I not? Are we developing a collective? Or and they don't even really. The people who ask that question don't even really know the answer that they want. So it's a moving process, and while we try to grasp it, and what I'm fearful of is as soon as we get the hang of it, it'll change or it'll grow or become something totally different. But the wheels are off. For lack of a better phrase, and we're trying to find ways here at Hobart where it can make sense for us, more so from a recruiting element than a player on campus element. I think two aren't the same thing. I think you're talking about attracting a student versus keeping a student and a student athlete and what that whole thing looks like. So I'd be lying if I said we had a great idea of how we're attacking this thing. I just know that it's a constant conversation. And, we recently had 2 years ago, athletic scholarship to Hobart College, the first time in the history of the program and the first time in the history of the institution. And, that's been a dramatic shift. And, it's like we just got cable and now everybody's streaming everything. We're just, we're trying to figure out the best way to treat this recruiting system properly, to keep some sanctity to it, and to make sure that things are established from a traditional standpoint and a cultural standpoint before they are from a monetary standpoint. So as much as I'd like to say, scholarships have changed us completely, they have in some ways, but, we still have to recruit in ways that other people don't, just to make sure that we keep the program that we know and love so well in the position that it's in. We've worked very hard to put ourselves in a place where we love the men we're coaching and they love to be here. And there's a lot that goes into that aside from what it costs or what we can give you in your pocket while you're here. So things have changed completely, and we're doing our best here at Hobart to make sure that we stay up with the times, but we're also, we like some old times here. We like the traditional balance of things. So we're trying to kind of juggle the two and see where we land.
Absolutely. In terms of traditional ways of doing things, I know historically you haven't been or taken a lot of transfers like a lot of teams have, which is very cool. And it certainly must be tough not to when you're competing against teams in the A10 conference. You're in a stacked conference now. When I was there, I played in the NEC, some great teams, but the A10 up and down is super talented. You have a stacked schedule this year in addition to some old-time rivalry games like Cornell and Syracuse. You go to Michigan this week. Can you talk a little bit about competing with some of these big dogs and a little bit about as well the schedule you put together for 2024?
Sure. And I think, Dan, you mentioned the transfer portal and how we have chosen to avoid it in a lot of different ways. I am in no way, shape, or form in a position to say what's right and wrong or how one program does things is the right way or how one program. Everybody's got to run their own ship, and however they choose to do so is not for me to say. I just know the way that I felt about this whole thing when it started here at Hobart, especially when that COVID thing hit and this transfer thing took off. I just knew it was going to get so gnarly that, instead of us finding another or finding an addition to, why not do a great job keeping the young men that are in purple and orange. And, I do believe that, Dan, you know me well, Mike, you the same. I'm a very competitive person, obviously doing this for reasons of victory and all that jargon. But I do want the sanctity of a 4-year process to remain true for a college athlete.
Right.
I think there's a ton to it, man. And I do believe in a tradition-based program. 4-year student athletes need to be your biggest focus, and I can't say bringing one guy in or two guys in would make us better or make us worse or yada yada. I don't know if that top transfer guy or that transfer portal member or the thousands of kids that are on it. I'm just not sure they're hunting down Hobart, if I can be honest. Mm-hmm. And if that's not the case, I'd rather recruit a high school athlete and teach him the ways that we will help a 4-year process grow, mold, and so when he leaves, the only school he's got loyalty towards is the one that he spent 4 years at, or in some cases 5 years. So I think the transfer portal has given a lot of young men some excellent opportunities, some that I love, teammates of yours, Dan, that when this first hit, the story Eric Holden's an awesome one, and there's some other things that are great about the transfer portal. And then I believe there's some other things that can create some clouded moments and some difficulty with players on campus, players on rosters that committed to you in high school, and another guy comes in and takes that second line midfield spot or that first line midfield spot. There's just lots to sort out. So we stayed the way of the 4-year athlete and hope that it pays off for us in the end here. But I do think that there's a lot of different ways to look at this thing, and of course 1,000 different ways to skin a cat. So and with going into this, the tough schedule that we have and the tough schedule we'll always have, and what the Atlantic 10 brings, I don't know as though you need transfers in order to compete in this league. I just think you need to coach your guys really well and help them understand what the endurance of a season looks like, and how much better you can get from a failure, how much better you can get from a success, and I think all those things that I just said about that transfer portal and the loyalty of a 4-year athlete, I think all those things tie together. So I believe that pride in the program and a pride in the name on your jersey can overcome any difficulty with a transfer portal. Now, at the end of the day, you got some super teams out there, man. You do. You have tremendous rosters. So what we choose to do is say, let this empower us, where we haven't gone and looked, and we've trusted the young men that are here, and we're going to put a fantastic team on the field every time we face off to play a game. So we're kind of sticking to our guns there. We're doubling down on the underdog, and we're going to battle as hard as we can with any and all who we face off with on Saturdays.
Absolutely. That gets me fired up. And I guess just going right off that, super teams, I mean, you look at Michigan, they have every resource you can imagine. Just last question here. Is there a specific mentality or focus for the team this week before a huge underdog moment for Hobart?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's going to be based on what happened in our first game and how underwhelming it was from an execution standpoint, where, it felt like we were a team that played in its first game against a team that played in its third, and the poise and composure that a Colgate showed versus a Hobart is something that, I'm not entirely proud of, but also fully understand that, an early February game does provide some frustration. And I'm in the full belief that no one's good in February. I mean, if you see good lacrosse and you know what it is, and you watch even the best teams play this month, you go, it's a little bit all over the place. Right. So I love the fact that we were able to have a failure of that magnitude early, and then see the look in my players' eyes in the locker room the day after watching that film. We got a great group here. We've got a ferocious group, and one that is led well, that is very hungry. So we look at this as not just a Michigan thing and a Hobart thing, but an ability of redemption from a week prior. And we have to do more of that focus as powerful of an opponent as Michigan shows. And, the players that they have, the facilities that they have, well, however you want to draw up the program, they're a good team. But at the same time, we have to be able to balance the prep from that situation or the prep to go into Ann Arbor with, what are we doing for Hobart this week? How are we making ourselves better? Because if you go all prep and you go all maize and blue and this is what they run and this is how we da-da-da, then you lose some momentum with your improvement. So again, the balance thing is very important this week. And, going into Ann Arbor, if we were going into Ithaca, if we were going down, that 45 minutes down Route 90 to that program we don't talk about. It doesn't matter. You're still going to have to be a better version of yourself than you were a week ago. So we're spending a lot of time on that. And at the same breath, I mean, how I operate, man. This is 50,000 versus 50. I love the Battle of Thermopylae. I love what we're going up against. I love that we're not supposed to win. I love that they have more athletes. I love that they're in a bigger and more powerful conference. I love everything about it. And so, and my guys will too by the time Saturday rolls around. So we're going in this thing with very high ambition, but also going in understanding that mistakes will be made. It's the second game for this program this season. And we're anxious to have tons more success than we had a week prior, but also be able to adjust, mold, and grow throughout the course of a 60-minute game as experiences continue to come our way.
100%. We're fired up, Coach. We really appreciate you being here. Good luck this week against Michigan and against a stacked out-of-conference and in-conference schedule this spring. Appreciate it.
Good, man. Proud of you guys, man. Keep plugging.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks to Coach Greg Raymond. We'll remember first head coach on the show. Mike, you got some analysis for this game.
That we do. Interesting fact here. Hobart is 1-0 against Michigan all time, beating them 11-7 in 2013. Both teams are looking for a bounce back here, with Hobart losing to Colgate at home and Michigan losing to UVA at Klockner. Hobart is led by senior attackman Anthony Natalis, who has 3 goals and an apple in the opener and on the season. And faceoff man Adam Shea went 20-30 on faceoffs and broke the Hobart ground ball career record.
Yes, Adam.
Nice job, Adam.
Yes, Adam.
Beast Adam. Michigan's led by senior attackman Michael Boehm, who had 3 points in their opener and became the 3rd player in Michigan lacrosse history to reach the 100-goal mark.
In Jacksonville at Marist. Marist 3.5-goal underdogs. Games at 1 p.m.
Yeah, really solid game. Both teams are 1-0. Marist is coming off a MAC championship last year, and Jacksonville is coming off a championship loss to Utah. This is going to be a real close game. I like Marist 3.5. I think this is going to be a 1-goal game. Not sure who's going to win, but really, really good game to watch this weekend.
We have Merrimack at LIU. This one's at 2 p.m.
Merrimack is 2-1 all time against LIU, with the last contest going to Merrimack 15-9. Merrimack is 2-0, coming off a 11-10 win over Sacred Heart. They are led by grad attackman Jack Rooney, that had 5 points last week and has 12 on the year. LIU is 0-1 after a tough loss to Monmouth. They are led by preseason All-MAC selection graduate attackman Sean Bull, who had 5 points in their opening contest.
The Battle of UMass. UMass Lowell at UMass. This one's at 3 p.m. Eastern. University of Massachusetts Amherst is 12.5-goal favorites.
Yeah, I mean, UMass is the superior team here, no question about that. I'd take some time to build the depth, get everybody in the game this week. Too bad DraftKings doesn't allow betting on games in the Commonwealth. I would take the over here.
Lehigh 6-goal underdogs at Cornell. This one's at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. To weigh in for our analysis is Cornell, class of 22 attackmen. His senior year, he was the leading scorer with 66 goals. Leading scorer in the country, led Cornell to the national championship where they lost to the greatest show on turf, Maryland Terrapins, but we're thrilled to have a Massachusetts kid, John Piatelli.
A quick shot and a score, but then they're dealing with Luke Weirman. Warthog sets the pick, shot and score! Piatelli! his 66th of the season, a new Cornell single-season record. They got that in 5 seconds.
All right, John, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, great being here. Thanks, guys.
Of course. Yeah, just to get caught up a little bit. I know you're playing for the Firewolves right now, competing in that league. So tell us a little bit what the past couple winters have been like for you.
Yeah, I guess taking myself back a little bit to graduating Cornell. As you guys know, and as an athlete knows, you play so many years of whatever sport that may be. For us, it was lacrosse, and you obviously put so much time into it. It's kind of hard to just kind of stop and let it go. So I always had an interest in box. Part of it was that, I had Jeff Teat, John Donville, Clark Peterson, at Cornell with me. So, Jeff went number 1 overall. John went number 1 overall. Clark was a high first-round pick playing for Halifax now. So kind of got introduced to it pretty heavily through them in the summers, watching them and kind of hearing about it. And then just summers when I was home from college, I'd play as much as I could. It's hard as an American and around us to really get high-quality box lacrosse. And then just had an interest and kind of reached out to some local teams saying I had an interest. Actually, the Firewolves, one of the owners is Mike French, who played at Cornell, so that was my connection there.
Wow.
They drafted me in the 3rd round. Showed up at training camp last year. Made the team and kind of, was learning on the fly. Had a ton of fun with it. Much faster, different pace game, very physical. And the Canadians have been playing their whole lives, so just, coming in trying to learn as fast as possible and try to stay up with them. And then, this is my 2nd year. Still learning on the fly. Feel a little bit more comfortable out there, just having a year under my belt. But, it's still an adjustment and a challenge. But, it's been a great experience being able to, continue to play and continue to have that kind of motivation and kind of drive. So I'll stop there for now if you guys want follow-up questions, but that's kind of how I got into it and how I'm liking it.
No, totally. And you see that style of play come out when you watch Cornell, the box style, certainly. And speaking of Cornell, I want to talk about their season a little bit. Their unanimous preseason vote to win the Ivy League. A lot of your teammates still there. Would love to get your take on what it'll take for the Big Red to return to championship weekend.
Yeah, they definitely, I think, just thinking back to 2022 when we had that good run there, you have plenty of guys that are, on the team now that were on that 2022 roster. So, they have the Final Four weekend experience. They kind of know what it takes to get there. And last year, obviously, a little bit of a disappointing, I would say, not a little bit, definitely a disappointing exit last year, losing to Michigan in the 1st round at home. So I think they're going to come back with a vengeance. They have that roster with, top to bottom. You got CJ Hurst, Mikey Long, some studly attackmen, a strong midfield, Hugh Keller, Spencer Wertheim, good face-off guy. And, we lost our goalie last year, but strong, guys coming in there. And then defense, Jack Fall is kind of leading the way there. So, very strong team, I'd say. In my opinion, I think whether you're, a championship team or not at the college level, because especially now with the amount of parity there is and how many good teams there are and the talent level, I really just think it comes down to A, how close you are as a team, and B, like what your leadership looks like. I think, the reason we were successful my 5th year was because we just went through the ring with COVID, and then we were just so determined to make it. And our 5th year guys, the class we had, were so tight and kind of just we're great leaders top to bottom. There was no dead weight pulling us down. Everyone was moving in the same direction. And, when you get to that level, you get to May and it's been a grind, and you got finals and, a lot going on in your life,
Right.
You need everyone going in the same direction. So I think it's the leadership, and I do think they have that. So, I have high aspirations for them this year.
Certainly.
Yeah, John, Brett, hopping on, just a quick last one here. In the off season, you're super involved with the game. We played with Team Italy. You were there for the World Games. Your father runs Piatelli Lacrosse, and you help out there. I mean, what, just in a few words, like, what are your hopes for the future of the game, and why do you continue to stay involved?
That's a great question, Brett. I guess I'll tackle the second one first, just because it's a little easier. In terms of why I stay involved, I think just, as you guys know, like, the game's given us so much. My closest friends are, my lacrosse buddies. And it's just different, going through the ringer with, thinking back to Cornell days, like just going through those brutal February months, those brutal November months, and you just get so close to the guys that you went through it with, and you come out just a better man, better person, and you have friends for life, and you can lean on them in any aspects of life. And I think when I, go and coach, it's, trying to, instill on these, young guys, what the future could look like if you really commit to it. It's special being on a team that is motivated and there's one collective goal, right? Like, when we're at Cornell, we're, at the end of the day, it's an Ivy League championship and a national championship, and we all have our eyes set on that one goal. We're all working towards it. And that's kind of rare to get in life. It's like, everyone working towards one thing, motivated, have, all the right mentality.
Right.
Just a group of very motivated individuals. And it's special. So that, and then that hard work kind of emulates to, the success and the, great moments you had, for you guys, you could speak to all the moments you guys had in college, the big wins, the big, league championships. And then for me, I can think about those Ivy League championships I had, and that, going to the Final Four, it's, it's still in my brain and I'll always remember it. So, just trying to show younger guys that opportunity is there if they commit to it and work towards it. And just like the satisfaction of putting that work in and seeing it come to fruition is awesome. So I guess that kind of speaks to why I stay involved. In terms of where I want to see the game go, I think it's obviously growing, more and more interest. More and more talent. It's honestly impressive. Some of these high schoolers coming out of high school and going to college and having the success they're having right away. And it seems like everyone's getting better and better. But I think, just trying to get as many people involved as possible in the game and trying to spread it as much as I can. Obviously, Brett, I got to play with you in Portugal and Hayden. And, I was fortunate to play this summer as well in San Diego with some of the Italians. And those guys, it's like, you're like a superstar to them. They're like, I think it's the coolest thing, how good you are. But for us, it's like, we don't see ourselves as that good. We grew up playing it, and they don't. And, they just have pure joy for the game. And they just want to learn it and play it. And they, sometimes when we're playing in the States, it's so competitive and so much pressure, and you kind of lose sight sometimes of the joy that comes from it. And for those guys, it's literally pure joy. So getting to play with them and just see that enjoyment they get is kind of why you want to spread it, because once people realize how great of a game it is, that joy is just going to spread.
Definitely. That's great context, and we look forward to continuing watching you play the game. We're excited for Cornell's year this year. Thanks so much for joining us, John.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Brett. Appreciate it.
Thanks to John Piatelli. Spoke to him a little longer after the interview. Great man and great representative of the Cornell Big Red. Mike, you have a little bit of your own analysis on this one.
That I do. Cornell is 7-0 against Lehigh and won 12-5 last year. Lehigh is 1-1 and just beat Fairfield in a tight contest. Cornell has their home opener, the unanimous pick to win the Ivy this year. They are led by Taunton finalist and first-team All-American C.J. Kirst, who had 84 points last year and was a matchup nightmare.
This one's right down the street if we can get out of bed in the afternoon, 3:30 p.m. Providence, 5-goal underdogs at Harvard.
Yeah, interesting game. Surprised to see Providence as 5-goal underdogs here. Harvard is a good team, just hasn't, played a game yet this year, and we don't know what to expect out of them. Providence has been playing well. They're 1-1 on the year, tough loss to Bryant. But like I said in previous episodes, right, Coach Bobby Benson has been a great coach thus far for Providence, and this is going to be a good game. Should be a huge crowd there. I like Providence +5.
If If you're in the mood for pizza this week, go to Villanova at Yale. Go to Modern Pizza, grab a slice, and at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, watch Villanova at Yale.
Yeah, this could be an interesting game. Nova got the short end of the stick from a pissed-off Penn State team. Justin Coppola did a really good job of the face-off X last week. He was 21 for 32. They need to take advantage of the possessions they do get. Yale beat Nova 20-14 last year. I feel a similar outcome this year. Yale is second in the coaches poll to win the Ivy this year, which is saying a lot. Really, really talented there. The Ivy's loaded. So they have other preseason nominations. We got Matt Brandow, he's third-team selection. D-mid, Patrick Hackler. Attackman, Chris Lyons, and LSM, Jack Stutson were honorable mention selections. These are good places to have these selections.
Penn State goes to Long Island, and they are 7.5-goal favorites at Stony Brook.
Yeah, second week in a row that Stony Brook is hosting a Big Ten team. Stony Brook's coming off a 4-goal loss to Rutgers last week, and Penn State is coming off a big win against Villanova. Both teams are battle-tested, especially Stony Brook. I like Stony Brook plus 7.5. We'll see how Penn State travels, how they show up. But, like I said, I think Stony Brook's a high-powered team, very exciting team to watch, and I like Stony Brook plus 7.5.
Sunday, we have High Point at Queens.
High Point is 1-1 and just got hammered by a very good Duke Blue Devil team at home. Queens is 0-1 off a loss to VMI. They're led by junior attackman trio Ryan Lightsey and Jack Royer.
Notre Dame at Marquette, 2 p.m. Eastern, Sunday.
Yeah, excited to see Notre Dame kick off their season. Actually, this will be their second game. They're playing Cleveland State tomorrow night.
Right.
But this is their first real test against a good Marquette team who is 2-0. Going to Marquette, tough place to play. We'll see if they are playing in a bubble. I expect them to be playing outside. But if Notre Dame's anything like the team last year, which they should be since they bring back the Kavanaughs, Liam Entenman, and a whole plethora of other generational talent, I expect Notre Dame to win this game. But I do think Marquette will put up a pretty good fight against this Irish team.
Can't wait to watch the Irish play lacrosse. And to clarify for our guests, what we say last night, Notre Dame played on Wednesday against Cleveland State. Record on Tuesday nights here. Tuesday games on the 20th, we have a list of games we're not going to cover now. Albany goes to Penn, BU at Brown. Some good games here, man. Marist at UMass, BMI at Hampton, Canisius at Hobart, Manhattan at Princeton, Bryant at Harvard. Might have to go down to that one. Drexel at Lafayette. Robert Morris goes to St. Bonaventure. Then on Wednesday, some more good games. Utah at Syracuse, Fairfield at Sacred Heart, Monmouth at NJIT, and then Colgate goes to Yale. Before we jump into our games of the week, we're going to hear a Division III rundown with Hayden. Going to talk about some big games that happened this week and what to look out for as we move forward in the Division III landscape.
Yeah, this past week, the only real notable game on my radar was RPI at York. RPI beat York. Luke Murphy had 4 goals and an assist for RPI. Angelo Venuto went 63% at the X. And Joe Perry, the first team preseason All-American goalie for RPI, was 67% in net. Big win for RPI, knocking off a top-ranked York team. RPI jumps up in the standings to, I believe, 9. So they will be a force this year in the Liberty League. Couple games coming up this Saturday. That'll be good tests are RIT at Denison, Lynchburg at Gettysburg, Washington and Lee at York, Muhlenberg at Stevenson. Right, 4 games there that will kind of dictate some of these at-large bids. Will kind of set the stage for the North and South in Division III. Obviously, it's a long season and a lot of games are to be played. But these games are really good to kick off the week 1 of Division III. And going forward, we'll touch on D3 more. Obviously, this is early in the season and there hasn't been too many games yet, but there's certainly teams that we are going to follow. We will have some D3 guys on the show, and we're excited to kind of dive into the D3 landscape and follow along once it really gets going.
D2, we'll give you some love at some point. Just we got to know when you guys are listening first. We haven't heard from you yet. So
We will.
Focusing in now on our games of the week. First one, a huge game in upstate New York. Maryland, 1.5 goal underdogs at Syracuse. We're fired up. This is going to be a good one.
My saying for this game, boys, is when Flash meets its maker. Hughes has been impressive thus far. 3-0, they've shown that they can put the ball in the net. They've shown that they can defend the ball. They've shown that they can be good in every facet of the field thus far. Maryland is coming off a very impressive defensive performance against a good Loyola team. Held them to 3 goals.
4 goals.
4 goals. Goalie Logan McNaney had 12 saves. He's another X factor for that team. But I think this is a game of matchups. We see a marquee matchup in graduate defenseman Ajax Zapatello versus sophomore attackman Joey Spallina. Last year, Spallina had 3 goals and 2 assists. He was last covered by PLL defenseman Brett Maker. This is going to be a great one to watch if you enjoy watching some of those marquee matchups. Ajax Zapatello held Loyola's guy last week to 0 points, I believe, and he was on fire against Georgetown. It's going to be a fun one to watch. And then another one here, face-off matchup. Hughes was 19 of 23 face-offs last game, and then he's going against Maryland's guy Luke Weirman, the all-time face-off man at Maryland, who had 12 wins against Loyola.
Yeah, Syracuse is flash this year. Spallina's been on a tear, right? I think he's averaging 8 points or so a game. But Maryland is Maryland, and this is a 6 o'clock game. This game is everything for both teams, right? Hughes has to prove that they've grown up a little bit, that their sophomores are ready to compete at this level, right? They went winless in the ACC last year, and Maryland's not an ACC team, but they're of that caliber, right? So this is Syracuse's real first test and chance to prove that they have grown up a little bit. And like you said about Maryland, they're a hard-nosed team. They're coming to beat the whatever out of Hughes, and yeah, we can say that, I guess.
It's like Maryland's like the class. They're the class of the blue blood. They're the class of the top tier, and Hughes is like fucking Flash Gordon of the blue bloods. It's just, I can't believe that Maryland is an underdog in this game. Is the spread crazy? No, but I can't believe they're an underdog.
Let's not jump to conclusions on the identity of this Syracuse team. I think they're redefining themselves with a new head coach, but the contrast in styles is provocative, and I'm very excited for this one. Virginia goes to Richmond. Richmond's 6.5 goal underdogs. The Spiders are off to a great start this year with an overtime loss to Maryland and a big win at Robert Morris. We believe this is going to be competitive.
Yeah, I think we can talk about Virginia all day. We already have. This has everything to do with Richmond, who they want to be this year. Aiden O'Neill was Offensive Player of the Week last week in the A-10. We know what they did to RMU as well. They're going to be home. This one's going to draw a crowd both physically and virtually.
Yeah, I don't know the last time I saw UVA play at Richmond. It seems like every game played at Richmond is a close game, right? And looking back at that Maryland game, right, it was so close. Richmond is just a tough opponent to play. But with that said, UVA is as good as anybody, maybe the best team in the country this year. What I was really surprised about in their game against Michigan was just the size of their personnel all over the field. Obviously, their defense is always huge. Coach Lars Tiffany loves to recruit defensemen who are above 6'5" and can run like the wind. But even on offense, right, Schellenberger and Cormier and Millen, they all look big. They all look filled out. They all just look like cream of the crop athletes. And, Richmond is a very talented team. I just struggle to see them being able to hold off the strength and power of that Virginia offense.
Didn't Richmond beat UVA at home last time UVA played at Richmond? Might have been 2 years ago.
At Richmond?
At Richmond.
That game was, I can check that.
UVA, I'm pretty sure Richmond upset UVA at home. But this is another game of matchups, and I think two here. The big one being 6'7" defender Cole Kastner on UVA, the Jurassic Park. He did a excellent job against senior attackman on Michigan, Michael Boehm. He just looked dominant in that matchup. He out-physicaled him. He played the ball excellent. He's going to have the task of covering Dalton Young. Dalton Young in the last go had 2 goals and 2 assists, and he's a tough matchup. He's a tough matchup, and they have a good offense around him. And then on the flip side, we have a Tewarton finalist, Schellenberger, who had 2 goals and 4 assists last time against Richmond, who is going to be covered by Hunter Smith. He is a sophomore defenseman on Richmond. He was an A-10 all-rookie team. He's a good cover man. He has great footwork, and he can definitely erase somebody if he has a good game. So those will be 2 to watch for sure.
Richmond has had months, almost a year, to think about Virginia, so they're motivated. They're coming hot. They're coming heavy. A big game, one of my favorite games of the week, Denver at Utah. This game was far different years ago, and now Utah has established themselves. They beat Denver last year, right?
They certainly could have. I'm not sure.
Check that. But Denver 6, Denver at Utah.
Yeah.
Utah 1.5 goal underdogs.
I mean, like you said, asking if they beat him last year, I think it's the same for this year. It's a toss-up. That plus 1.5 is there for a reason. Even though Denver might be number 6 in the country, it's hard to look at this game and just be like, yeah, Denver's taking this. I think it's going to be a close contest. Denver is having a great start to their year. Utah did fall to Ohio State, but they looked good, man. They looked good. They were up front in that game. If you watched and tuned into that Ohio State-Utah matchup, they looked solid, and they definitely have some good pieces to make this an excellent matchup.
Yeah, my only issue with Denver is, they looked great against Hopkins, beat a talented Hopkins team who, maybe in week 0 was, projected to be a little bit better than they are. What tells me a lot about Denver is their game last week against Air Force, only beating them by 2, right? After the performance against Hopkins, you would have expected Denver to come out and step on the throats of Air Force. Air Force is a gritty team and a talented team, but, being ranked 6, coming off that win, you would have expected them to, kind of pull away a little bit. And really, they let Air Force hang around, never really got that separation they needed. And, when I look at Utah, they're a similar team to Air Force. Lots of talent, had a great year last year, and they're going to, come out here and try to punch Denver in the mouth. So we'll see how Denver reacts to that, see if they, play down to their opponent or if they can get a couple goals and get a cushion and run away with it.
That was a 6.5 spread too, wasn't it? Denver versus Air Force?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Right. And I also think, funny point to think here, this is also a future PLL matchup, PLL Archers and Outlaws, Denver, Utah. We'll see that very common. But it's kind of like a Wild West matchup if you think about it. There are not too many teams that west in the country who are good at lacrosse playing each other and have to travel in the West like that. It's uncommon and it's fun to watch. You're intrigued almost by that.
2 newly established
Western
hotbeds.
Frontier.
Yep.
I think, just to check myself, Utah did not win this game last year. Last year, Denver won 12-4, but the 2 years before that, it was a 1-goal game both times. So this could be a great contest. Loyola ranked 20th. They're 3.5 goal underdogs at Johns Hopkins. Interesting.
Yeah, this is the Battle of Charles Street. It's an age-old rivalry between the 2 teams, I think since 1939. Fans at home would like to throw out the Charles Street Massacre, but, surprisingly enough, Loyola has won 4 out of their last 5 meetings. Again, Loyola is riding high after week 1. Maryland took it to them. The Terps were just dominant. I saw, they were the only team scoring in the first and third quarter. So they'll be chomping at the heels of Hopkins.
Yeah, neither one of these teams takes this matchup lightly, and nor should they. This is a huge matchup with playoff implications, at-large implications. Hopkins is coming off that loss to Denver, but they've bounced back against Towson last week. Loyola just got pounded by Maryland. I think both teams trying to assert themselves in that top 10. I know Hopkins is probably still ranked in that top 15 section. But But two teams that, this game means a lot to them, a lot to their schedule, a lot to their rankings, and a lot to their confidence going throughout the season.
For sure. And I think from just watching Hopkins, at least the past two games, I mean, their attack looks very balanced. And when I mean attack, I mean offense. Degnan can shoot the shit out of the ball. He finds space in that Crawley offense. The way that they sit in space and just rip the ball, it's pretty impressive. And then Loyola, I mean, I kind of saw it, didn't see it coming at all. They have a really young defense, but they've been playing well. They've kept some good offenses in check. If you think about it, they kept Maryland to 11. They kept Georgetown to 10. Very young defense. Obviously, they are led by Luke Stout, goalie, had 16 saves against Maryland. They still lost. But another matchup to watch, Evan James, Loyola attackman versus senior defenseman Scott Smith on Johns Hopkins. Last year, Evan James had 2 goals and an assist. It's going to be another fun one to watch. Evan James was held in check last week against Maryland, and we'll see what he does against another really stud, close lockdown defenseman, Scott Smith.
We just watched Northeastern win the Beanpot final last night. Someone proposed the idea at some point down the line. It would be pretty cool if there was some sort of Beanpot for teams around Baltimore. Some sort of in-season. You get Loyola, Hopkins, Maryland, UMBC, one of those groups, and I think it'd be fucking awesome.
So much fun.
I'd be there.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on now, Army. They're ranked 7th. They go to Rutgers, who are ranked 11th. Army, 1.5 goal underdogs in this game. This is exciting.
Yeah, I think our Army's got a lot to be proud of. They showed us what we wanted to see, honestly. Played a really good team at UMass. We're seeing a lot of familiar names: Jacob Morin, Bailey O'Connor, Jackson Eicher, Reese Burek, again, the Rochester native, not Canadian. This is the first of 7 upcoming games for Rutgers. That's a number 15 team or better in the coaches poll. So I think it will be a game where both teams come out flying. Again, a bit of a rivalry. But yeah, I'm excited to watch this one.
Yeah, I was super impressed with Army against UMass. Watching them last year, they were one of the teams that I picked to be in the Final Four. With that said, Rutgers is a very talented team, and it looks like their game against Stony Brook, right? They really started getting those transfers some playing time, getting them involved. Tanner Kremenacher, who's a attackman transfer from Amherst, had 4 points. So this is going to be a high-powered matchup. The question is Rutgers tough enough to score goals in this Army defense, and are they tough enough to stop the studs that Army has?
Army is 16-5 all-time against Rutgers. They won last year 14-13. It's going to be another gritty game. It's going to be similar to that Army UMass. It's going to be a gritty game. Another good matchup to watch in this game. You got junior defenseman AJ Pilot from Army, who is the 2023 Patriot League Defensive Player of the Year as a sophomore. He'll be covering attackman Ross Scott, the graduate attackman on Rutgers, who is a very shifty and excellent dodger from X. He can feed, he can shoot. That'll be a fun one to watch for sure.
It's going to be a phenomenal game. A clash of culture, as we've said before. Bryant getting some love from the College Across Game Day show. They are 2 weeks in a row, game of the week. They go to BU, who's ranked 15th. BU is a 4.5 goal favorite in this one.
Yeah, last year was an overtime game. BU came out on top 16-15. Kevin Groninger scored 4 against Providence last week. The Hackett brothers got their parents on their feet. They combined for 7 points. It's a great start for BU. They're 2-0. They beat St. Joe's in Vermont. They got a couple grad students that can really play. Vince D'Alto, Louis Perfetto. D'Alto is the all-time point leader after last week. Louis Perfetto leads in career assists. I think they're getting their masters in lacrosse. I like the Terriers to win, but I think Brian might cover as well.
Yeah, Brett, I also like the Terriers to win. Bryant proved a lot last week, beating a good Providence team, only by 2. But, nonetheless, it was a good win. And Bryant's always gritty, right? They always find a way to win their conference, to make it into the NCAA tournament. They always find a way. So, we'll see if BU can hold them off. But game playing at BU, tough place to play, right? Kind of a unique place to play. So I like BU in this. I like the offense that they have, and we'll see if Bryant can put a stop to that.
If BU's goalie plays the way that he did against St. Joe's, it's going to be hard to beat them anytime. But I think Bryant can cover plus 4.5. They're a great team. This is an excellent matchup. I believe this game, correct me if I'm wrong, was the game at BU, so it might have been 2 years ago, where it just started blizzard snowing during the middle of the game, where it showed a camera before and after, and it was like a minute, and then all of a sudden, blizzard, and you couldn't see anything.
Right. I know exactly.
I think that's just game, man. It's just it could go any way. Anything could happen at any time, and it could be anyone could win this game. It's a great matchup.
Lacrosse was not meant to be played in February
in
New England, and I don't want to sleep on that BU win against St. Joe's. I mean, the two, you call Patriot League mid-major. That's a huge win for BU. It's not a Big Ten or an ACC team, but those teams both want to prove themselves as being in that next tier of programs. That's it.
Absolutely.
That's it. That's it for week 2 slate. Week 2 slate. There's some great games this week. We appreciate you guys. Hope you enjoyed this one. Would love your feedback as always. And share this bad boy. You got to get it out there. Appreciate it. Thank you. College Across Game Day, week 2.
Thank you.
Peace. Enjoy.
Peace.
Holden getting underneath. Maltz. Great catch by Bernhardt. Score!